Hey there, before we begin, just a quick note. If you're not yet familiar with the Way of the Hearthmother, we recommend listening to the foundational episode where it's introduced and unpacked. This roundtable builds on that framework, and having that context will help you fully enter into what these women are sharing. And I'll have it linked down below in the show notes.
But I think so often I forget to wait on the Lord. And that's just been something that's really shown up in my everyday life of, okay, my toddler's going crazy. Let's figure out how we can intervene and we can, fix the problem that needs fixing. But it's been really humbling just to sit and say, okay, nope, I need to just wait a minute and let you act first, Lord, and give you that space. And I don't remember, there's a lesson in the Wait on the Lord module that talks about when you are waiting, you're not waiting with expectation of, hey, Lord, this is what I want you to do. It's truly waiting with an open hands posture of no, Lord, you do what you need to do. And that's just been so radical in my life to not wait with expectation, but to wait with truly letting him lead and letting him do the work that he has planned.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share homebirth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year, from the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall, of Rooted in Eden Private Membership Association,
and me, holistic birthkeeper and photographer Brooke Collier of Sister Birth. Together, we are co-founders and facilitators of Hearthmother Journey, where we are raising up the next generation of holy wild birthkeepers.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all of your decisions unto the Lord and reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has called good.
Please remember that birth is not a medical event, but a natural process, and we are not your care providers, so this should not be taken as medical advice.
Guys, it's so fun in the Holy Wild Birth studio. You guys should join us sometimes. We actually have about 5 women who have joined us, all who have such a special place in mine and Brooke's heart, and I'm very excited to introduce them to you. So they are all either graduates or current students within Hearthmother Journey, and we wanted to just invite you guys to hear a little bit from them on how the Way of the Hearthmother, which is something that they have learned in depth and taken a year-long just immersion into, how that's impacted really their life in all sorts of ways. So we've just invited them to come in and share. Just so confident you're going to hear lots of encouragement and wise words from these beautiful women. So first, I'm just going to let everyone individually introduce herself and share what was your first encounter or reaction to the Way of the Hearthmother, whether it was listening to the podcast or going through the course. Where was that first reaction? Where was that first encounter, and what was your reaction to it?
Hi guys, my name is Autumn Rose. I am a traditional midwife practicing in Western Pennsylvania. My first encounter with the Way of the Hearthmother was probably about 2 years ago. I was in the midst of a kind of a rocky apprenticeship experience. I really honor these women. It was just a totally different practice style, a lot more fear-based than I would align with normally. And so in the midst of all of this, I ended up leaving this practice knowing that God had asked me to free birth our third baby. And I was like, I can truly not be the only person in the whole planet who believes that birth is good and that God did a really good job when he designed this whole process. And so I'm not even sure exactly how I stumbled on it, but at some point I found the Holy Wild Birth podcast and I devoured it because I was like, these women are just like me. They believe that this is good. They truly believe that it's good. And so when I heard the Way of the Hearthmother just explained, I was like, this is what is missing. And it was just so solidifying for me. So many aha moments. So I've been soaking it up ever since.
Love that so much. All right, Hannah, you want to introduce yourself and answer the same question?
Yeah, my name is Hannah Gingrich. And it's been probably maybe almost exactly 3 years since I first heard about the way of the Hearthmother. God had been speaking to me about stepping into midwifery, and so I was starting to like grapple with how do I do that? And then I was doing some postpartum doula support for a friend of mine, and she told me about this podcast called Holy Wild Birth. And she's like, you should listen to it and start with these episodes. And she sent me like 3 specific episodes. And first of all, it was like Brooke and Lauren, had no clue who they were. Brooke apparently lives where I live at the time. So that was a little bit shocking. I was like, wait, she's like 20 minutes from me. That's so weird. But one of those episodes was The Way of the Hearthmother. And I remember where I was listening to that podcast. I was driving, I was in my car, a place I often listened to podcasts. And specifically the poem that's like within that episode, it really describes the Hearthmother. Had me in tears. I think I like pulled up to wherever I was and I just sat in the car and finished listening to it or repeated it. But it felt like it put on display like so many cries of my heart that had been for so long for women and for mothering, both spiritually and physically, physiologically, and like all the ways of this call forever for women to serve women and be just at the feet of women. Um, and it just like rang so deeply. And then like the steps were like definitely a part of that, of kind of just putting to um what like I had known, but it just like articulated it so much in a way that I could then go and share that with others. And so that was kind of like the beginning. I live in the upstate of South Carolina. I live in Greenwood, South Carolina. And I am a doula and a student midwife. Student is lasting longer than I anticipated, but I think that is the story that many people have, but there's a lot of peace in it. So at this point, just serving women as the opportunities come. But that's on the back end there.
Love that so much. I remember the first time and just that it brought you to tears just also just moved my heart in undescribable ways. That's just so cool. Next we have Krista.
Hi, I'm Krista, and I am a birthkeeper in Southeast Texas. And I also remember the very first time I heard the podcast for The Way of the Hearthmother. When I got into birth work, I was looking for different podcasts to listen when I'm driving or cleaning or whatever, and that's how I came across Holy Wild Birth. And when the Way of the Hearthmother podcast came out, I was actually driving across the state of Texas to go for my cousin's birth. And I ended up waiting like 3 weeks, just staying with my sister, waiting for my cousin to have her baby. But I had listened to that podcast on the way up there, and it was so beautiful how each of the steps like so clearly impacted that specific birth. And the waiting that I was in, the just not being fidgety, not being antsy, and really just allowing my cousin to have peace in that season as well. And then I specifically remembered Lauren talking about the Holy Spirit giving her 3 promptings before she acts. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to incorporate that at this specific birth. And I did. And it was so amazing to just be and to witness, because my cousin, she's like one of those people that just births really smoothly, and she didn't need any intervention. And in fact, ended up having her baby on the way to the birth center in the car, like rocked it on her own. And because I had listened to this podcast, I was just so go with the flow and so calm and peaceful about it. And I loved being able to look back and be like, whoa, that could have been totally different if I was in my feelings and in my normal thought process. But because I had heard that podcast, and then I'd like re-listened to it during those 3 weeks multiple times while I was waiting. And so it was really beautiful seeing that particular aspect of how it impacted that specific birth.
I love that so much. Oh, and we have the little baby in the background. All right. So next we have Olivia.
Hey friends, my name is Olivia and I'm a midwife apprentice, doula, and holistic health coach, also in Western Pennsylvania. My first reaction to The Way of the Hearthmother was somehow, as you all, stumbling across the podcast and just being so enthralled and captivated by the story, the poem, the way that Brooke and Lauren explained The Way of the Hearthmother. And I remember just being so moved by it. I was like, I have to listen to this again. And at that time, I was, through the podcast, kind of rediscovering this hidden desire in my heart to study midwifery. And I was also going on a cross-country move right when I listened to the podcast. And so my childhood best friend, I was like, hey, she was driving me out across the country. Do you want to listen to this podcast together? And so we spent like several hours just discussing, contemplating, listening. And to this day, she still has the steps of the Hearthmother written on her fridge. She's not in birth work, but she does listen to this podcast. But I just knew from that moment on, I had to transform the way that I was living to be in accord with this way. So grateful for the formation of Hearthmother Journey that really schooled me in that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and like not cry listening to you people. It's really rude, actually. Oh, okay. And then lastly, we have Trinity here.
Hi, I'm Trinity. I live in Boise, Idaho, and I guess you could call it maybe like a student midwife and doula. And my first encounter with the Way of the Hearthmother was, I guess, hearing the full thing detailed out was on the podcast. And I think my experience with it was actually a little different than all of your guys' beautiful experiences, because I remember hearing that poem and I loved it so much, but I just felt like really unworthy of it. And like, oh, maybe Brooke, maybe Lauren could, like hold that mantle and, sit at the feet of birth and be this like beautiful, still graceful woman, but not me. And I just remember thinking like it just felt like so unreachable. Like, how am I supposed to just like hear something crazy and take it to God first and then like sit with it and then start asking questions? Like, how do I have to like reorder all of that? And it just like felt really, I don't know, daunting in some ways, until I kind of got enrolled in the Hearthmother course, and it really just started to make sense in there. But I think the initial encounter for me was actually really scary and almost like a really heavy, like, how am I supposed to do that?
Wow, thank you. That was so real. I think probably more often than not, that is some women's experience, especially hearing the poem and being like, oh, wow, that's beautiful. Not me. That's not me. But the Way of the Hearthmother is about sharing that fire. And I was actually having this conversation a little bit with another one of our students and just a dear friend who I've actually known for, I don't know, almost 20 years, 15 years, something in there. And she was just talking about how she sees it everywhere in her life. And I was like, well, it's because it is everywhere. It's not actually something I made. It's just something I put language to, but it is the word. Like, it's just the word of God. And I was given the words for it, not necessarily something I created. And so I think it can have such a huge impact because of that. It's not actually me or Brooke or even the way specifically. It's just a way we've been able to put words to how God's asked us to live our lives. But that's big and daunting, right?
Yeah, I really appreciated you being real about that initial response to it, Trinity, because that feeling of unworthiness, I think Lauren even said that when her friend first gave her that poem, she was like, me? So you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
And I resonate with that too. Yeah, it still feels like, am I allowed to call myself that? So that's good. And I also love, though, that you pushed through the discomfort of feeling like that couldn't possibly be you to actually like come into this program and choose to grow in that.
Yes.
Lauren said this phrase the other day about the Way of the Hearthmother. I don't think I'd ever heard you say it in quite these words, Lauren, so I wrote it down.
Okay.
That it's a methodology of rightly ordered decision making. I was like,
Oh yeah.
yes, that's so
I
simple.
say
So
that all
again,
the
it's not
time.
some reason that maybe I never caught that exact phrasing before, but
Yeah.
so it's like a model anyone can practice and learn. It really is meant for everyone. All right. Well, I don't want to get off on too many tangents. Our next question for you gals was how the Way of the Hearthmother and those steps has impacted your existing or developing birth work, from like the offerings you create, the way you show up, the women you circle around you. We'd love to hear how that has found its way into your birth work and your birth service. And again, we'll go alphabetically. So we'll start with Autumn.
Yes, this is Autumn. So I feel like understanding the Way of the Hearthmother has actually just totally reset the framework of how I serve as a midwife. For a long time, probably backtracking, it'd probably been about 5 years before I understood the Way of the Hearthmother that I had been studying midwifery, like walking with women just as a student midwife in my becoming stages, which I probably will always forever and ever, never, never be in. But very much student midwife, that was my focus and my goal. In all of this time, I had this misunderstanding that I was to be a midwife for God. And I think when I started to digest the way of the Hearthmother and what that actually means in application is that I'm not doing it for him, I'm doing it with him. And so that reframed so much of how I was approaching this work and just even my confidence. And so God really used my understanding of the way of the Hearthmother to build this structure for me to step out into my own practice that I didn't have, but I really needed. And I'm so grateful that he knew that I needed that, because I now can go into a birth setting and I know that no matter what, I'm always the second in command. Like, I am the secondary midwife, even if I'm the only one in the room, because like Yahweh has been positioned as like the great midwife. So I'm just always like, as somebody would to a mentor, like, okay, what do we do with that? Like, circling back to that first step of like consulting the Lord, trusting the Lord, asking the Lord, waiting for his answers, searching intuitively. Instead of just canceling that out, I've realized like that really is the lost art of midwifery, is that searching intuitively, taking it back to the creator, and then just mingling all of those things together. So it's not just like you're looking at what's in front of you, you're fixing the problem. It's like there's just women and babies are such intricate beings that there's so much behind the scenes and God knows all of it. So we have access to the most brilliant mind to walk with us and help us in all situations. And so I really feel like for me, it has actually not even just impacted the way that I practice, but it's just totally reset my vision for this work altogether.
That's so beautiful. All right.
Yeah, this is Hannah. I just totally agree on that with Autumn. I think something she said is like reset. And I would say for me, because it like kind of came about as I was stepping further into birth work or stepping deeper into it, I would say it really set the like foundation on which I've been able to build from. And I'm still grateful for that. But it really is a foundational piece as I've been like walking with women in birth and outside of it. But it's been really sweet to like slowly build from that. And I think one like central piece of that is also similar to what Autumn said, that like you had said, Autumn, like that you're always second in command. And for me, what kind of came to mind is like I well, in the way of the Hearth Mother, I'm like multiple steps down the line, but instead of being like any type of like savior or like primary like person that a mom is coming to with a question or something like that, instead I get to just constantly defer. And instead of like, I'm like, I might have an answer to your question, but what is God telling you? What do you think? Like what is he speaking to you? What is your discernment? Like what are those things? And so it really has been able to equip me to equip women to walk out their own journey and walk out their own story with the Lord, and not, and I really feel like I'm like I don't know what the word quite is, but like I am just a support for their story, and I get to just like shepherd and support them to learn the way of the Hearth Mother and to walk through that, whether that's with like emotional relational things going on. I remember sitting with a mom with her like 2-year-old, and we were like, okay, there's a behavioral thing coming up, like, and it was like it was a prenatal and it was like, how can we, like, what does it look like to pray through this? What does it look like to see God in this situation? And just in every situation, kind of just bringing it back to that has taken, I think, burden off of, and also like brought joy to, but also kind of kept me in my right place where I'm not taking too much responsibility or too much credit for what is happening in the story. Yeah. And I think just getting to have a pathway to empower moms to take ownership has been really sweet in a world that takes as much ownership from moms, from birthing mothers as possible. God is the one in control, and then he has entrusted us as women with the babies that we carry. And so we're our primary care provider, like alongside God. And then we have other women coming in to support, and our partners being like right there with us. So yeah.
I just have to say I had the honor of being a mentor in Hannah's life in a even more outside of HJ. And when she would come to review things and talk about certain situations, she really truly was walking out that I am their fourth step. I feel like Hannah even like, yes, I taught that and I would tell her, yes, we're their fourth step. But then Hannah taught me that. It was like I got to see her like really, really not just be words, but really walk that out. And so I just want to say, like, thank you for truly walking that out so well. And I'm glad that that's the point that you brought here today.
Thanks, Lauren. I didn't know how to receive that. So thank you for sharing that.
This is Trinity, and I was just going to add, Lauren, you always used to say, like, on the hearth calls, it happened so many times, you'd say, like, you have to remember you are their fourth step. Like, when they ask you a question, like, have they done those first 3 steps? Have they taken it to the Lord? Have they waited with it? Have they got curious in themselves and with God? Like, you are their fourth step. And I think that's been, like, the biggest shift in how I just approach anything with, like, women in their childbearing year, like, remembering, like, I should not be coming first. And Hannah, I think you mentioned, like, you're rightly ordered and that you're not too important, but you're also not, like, undervaluing yourself. Yeah, that just, like, radically shifted how I approach women. Just making sure that you are truly, like, their fourth step and they've taken it to God first.
This is Autumn, just riffing off of that. That's so good. I think the Way of the Hearth Mother is such a great framework for teaching women, both in our own lives, but also in the women that we're serving, how to resource instead of outsource. Like how to resource with what is around you. Like you're pulling from wisdom from the Lord, you're pulling from your intuitive wisdom and waking that back up, because most women just simply turn that off. They don't even know how to listen to their own body, their own intuition. It's just like not even applicable. They just immediately look for you, fix me, save me, do something. And so I think with application of the Way of the Hearth Mother and even bringing that to our moms, like we can teach them how to pull from their resources without needing to turn over their power to do it.
Hey, this is Krista, and I love all of that, and it really, for me, the resource instead of outsource. Whoa, I love that. I'm taking notes of that. For me, it really humbled me. I was coming from a place of I had taken like a mainstream doula training course, and then I had been heavily influenced by a very like autonomy focused methodology of birth work, and I kind of had become sort of dogmatic in some of my thinking of like, well, I want to rescue women, or it wasn't that per se, but that was really kind of the heart of it, is like, I need to rescue birth, I need to rescue women. And really the Way of the Hearth Mother just humbled my heart so much, right? It helped me to learn to stop trying to be everything to everybody, because when I'm doing that, I can't serve anybody really well. And that when I say no to the ones that the Lord is not really telling me to say yes to, it opens up the yeses for serving those people that opened up deep relationships, deep ways of serving that would not have been otherwise possible, or like they would have been opportunities that I would have missed out on. And then specifically we had a baby in October, and it gave me the peace to accept that this is not my season to be in on-call work. And I really I grieved that a little bit, because I love attending births, and yet the Lord just kept whispering to me and to my husband that this is not the season for on-call work for us. And then he just, by submitting and having that heart posture towards him that I learned in Way of the Hearth Mother, I realized that he had other ways of serving that I had not even thought about yet, that are still so much in my calling to serve women, but weren't what I had my blinders on to see. And so when I use the Way of the Hearth Mother actually to like go through what my birth work will look like over the next year, it was just really beautiful to see the way that the Lord opened up opportunities to serve women still with that heart that he gave me.
That's just so good. So good. So good.
It's Olivia here. I would say the way that the Way of the Hearth Mother has impacted my birth work and my work with clients has been so revolutionary, also like so ongoing. In my personal life and in my life of service, I am always trying to jump ahead to 4 and beyond of the steps. I'm very comfortable with gentle intervention first, or supporting the body, then gentle, then invasive, but I still try to do that before I actually bring it back to the Lord. And something that I've found is I've been blessed to serve a lot of first-time moms specifically as my own clients, and most of them come to me with a lot of anxiety of like, I need to be prepared, I need to know every single thing or I just don't even know what to do about birth or how to prepare. And while I do give them the practical information and tools, I always give them the Way of the Hearth Mother worksheet, and I have them go through that. And then in our first meeting or second meeting, I'm always bringing it back to that. Like, okay, before you even start asking about this thing, that thing, and the other, where is your heart at? Where is your relationship with the Lord at? What is he speaking to you, instead of like, what is the world speaking to you? And I don't know if this has really helped them to reframe the way they approach their birth and their prep, but I pray that it does. And I'm always just trying to redirect back to that because I know everyone else has to do that for me in my personal life. And so I just do that with them and I love it so much.
You're all amazing. I think the women who get to work with you are stinking blessed to have you. And because so much of what makes a good birth servant is the heart and posture that underlies all the work, like the actual work. And your heart postures and your perspectives and philosophies are just so on point. So, all right. So we're going to kind of broaden this conversation a little bit too, though, because one of the most consistent pieces of feedback we've gotten from some of you as well as other students is that this turns out to be not just about birth at all, like that it has this trickle effect into the entirety of one's life. So all different areas of life that sometimes are surprising. So I guess our next question for you that we wanted to have you speak into a little bit was, where have you used this in a place in your life that felt surprisingly applicable or helpful that's outside of birth work? Are you a Jesus-loving woman who feels called to serve birthing mothers, but feels overwhelmed by the secular New Age ideologies in the birth world? You sense the holy tug to be a birthkeeper, doula, or traditional midwife, but it feels impossible to find training that honors both your faith and autonomous birth.
Allow us to introduce you to Hearthmother Journey. This isn't just another birth worker training. It's a transformative journey that will ground your birth ministry in biblical wisdom, equip you with a Christ-centered methodology of traditional, undisturbed birth practices, transform you into the wise guide God is calling you to be, expand the depth and breadth of your understanding of physiological pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Join the rising of the modern Hearthmother, centered on God's holy hearth, serving as his handmaiden, carrying the sacred fire of wisdom and truth.
We're on a mission to raise up the next generation of holy wild birth keepers. Will you be one of them? Click the link in the show notes to take the next step into your calling.
This is Autumn. I have had this really fun adventure of having women find me who have these obscure diagnoses and just they reach out to me and ask if I would just walk with them. And so it's kind of my side excitement, my side study is that I get to pursue women's health and just help women who are not pregnant, are not having babies, are just on their own journey of having a diagnosis that everybody is telling them that cannot be cured, apart from really fierce pharmaceuticals and things that these women in particular are not interested in pursuing. So one I'm thinking of in particular is this sweet, sweet girl who reached out to me. She'd been given a PCOS diagnosis. And what has been so fun is that together we talked through what does it actually look like for us to take the way of the Hearthmother and walk you through to your healing. And so we're in this process of talking to the Lord, bringing it to the Lord. We're waiting and hearing God. We're implementing just the alignment pieces. Let's first start by building that foundation, making sure your circadian rhythm is well, you're eating well, you're drinking clean water. Let's just start from scratch. Let's build this thing up. Make sure that we're not building on a foundation that's filled with cracks. Let's just go back to the very baseline of what we're doing here together. And so we're on this journey together, and she's seeing this beautiful progress, and her body is coming back into alignment, which is amazing and all God's glory. What was so fun for me is that she texted me the other day about something that I had reached out to her and said, hey, how about you consider doing this or this to just support your body and this healing? And she responded and said, I prayed and God said to do this, so that's what I'm going to do. And I was like, yes, she's doing it. So without even being encouraged to take it to the Lord, she was just already on that boat of this is how we're going to see this healing come around. And so she started applying the way of the Hearthmother. And I think that is just the most rewarding thing. It's when you can take the torch, light somebody else's fire, and just send them out to go. Because it's one of those things it's not just going to help her with this PCOS, it's going to help her for the rest of her life and into motherhood and into being a wife, and just all of the many ways that it actually does apply into your everyday. So I was so excited, and that was just like so fun.
That's so beautiful, Autumn, because this is Olivia here. I've also found that the number one place I've actually applied the way of the Hearthmother is in my health coaching and also in my own holistic health journey, which I've been on for many, many years. But there was a season of my life where I would experience any sort of symptom and it would be incredibly triggering to me. I had to research the heck out of that symptom. I had to figure out like what was causing it. I had to go deeper but not in a healthy way, right? Like it's getting curious way before my heart or my nervous system was able to receive any of that. And so through a lot of interior healing, but now I'm applying the way of the Hearthmother with it, I can experience a symptom or experience something that I want to work on and just, okay, like here I am before the Lord. I'm going to wait for his response to it. I'm going to get actually really curious about this instead of automatically like falling into fight or flight mode. And then if there is going down the steps, how am I gently supporting my body? Then how do I have to, maybe is there a little bit deeper of support that's needed? And so that has been really transformative for me personally. I'll just go through that in my mind whenever I'm experiencing something. And then also with the work I do with health coaching, that's one of my favorite things, is just really going through those steps because it's so foundational. And yeah, you won't actually experience lasting healing or transformation without that right order. Yeah. And
I wasn't really planning to share this, but Olivia and Autumn honestly experienced a pretty similar thing. I went through some really crazy, just like random health stuff this last year. And it got to the point I was like genuinely worried, like, oh my gosh, like, are we gonna be able to have another baby? Just some pretty crazy things. And I think I brought it up on one of the Hearth calls. And I don't remember if it was Brooke or Lauren, but one of you was like, have you taken this to the Lord? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I missed it, like, oh my gosh. And it just like really like reframed everything. I started just like praying about it and not like that it would go away or not that he would fix it, but just like, hey, Lord, like, I haven't even taken this to you. Like, what do you want with this? Like, do I need to sit here in this season? Do I need to go get the interventions? Do I need like more testing? Do I need to get curious? But like taking it to him first. And as soon as I did that, it was just like, nope, like this is your next step. And it was just like these like gentle things that were just like so perfectly laid out and not in like an overwhelming, like, here's 50 things that you should throw at it, but in a, hey, like this is the next rightly ordered step. Let's try this. And it was just peace filled and grace, and just his goodness was just saturated in that, and there wasn't fear or worry. Yeah, so it was just been a really, a very different type of approach to health than I think a lot of the world approaches things.
Such a less anxiety-filled way to navigate challenging things is a theme I'm hearing there. It slows you down and reconnects you with like the roots and the first things, the foundational things. And from that foundation, then you can explore further if you need to. But yeah, I love this. Yeah, Krista, let's hear from you next.
Yeah, this is Krista, and I just wanted to say that, like, I think, because I came on here to say some similar things, it just speaks to how much our society is functioning in a way that is out of alignment, that it's so counterintuitive for us to go through these steps when they actually should be the most natural. They're the ones that keep us from spiraling into anxiety. They're the ones that keep us on that rightly ordered path. You know, like, Olivia, you were saying you've been doing health coaching, and that's one of the things that the Lord has led me to in this postpartum season for me. And I realized I was so humbled this week because I realized it is so simple for me when I feel like I have this formula to help other women and I can walk through that, and it's so beautiful. And then I woke up the other day and I was just cranky. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I was just foul in my heart, and I felt like I was snapping at my kids, and like they were kind of being out of sorts as well. And so it wasn't just like exclusively me. There was some practical nature to it, but at the same time I just knew, like, okay, hold on, wait, I gotta stop. And so I took it to the Lord, and I'm like, okay, I know my kids are also being kind of crazy, but like, Lord, this is about my heart, and I should be able to deal with this better. And like, what's going on here? Like, I want to bring peace to my home. I want to be your light, and I want to shepherd my children's hearts, and I am not in a space to do that right now. Like, kind of what Trinity was saying, not like fix it, not like poof my mood better, but like, okay, what needs to happen? Like, how can I move forward with my day? And I did not get an answer right away. And sometimes that's how it is. And so I just waited, and I did little things that I weren't even thinking about, like being in alignment, but it was like, okay, have I read my scripture this morning? Yes, I did that. And at one point my kids were doing some of their classes on a computer, and I was like, let's just hold on, let's just go outside. And so we went and we sat outside that morning, and there was just something about being in the sunshine that was like, oh, wait a minute, this is exactly what I needed. I have not seen the sun yet today. You know, postpartum takes a lot out of you, and it just was, that's what I needed. It's been really overcast. So it was just funny to realize how easy it is for me to encourage other women to implement it, but then the Lord just humbled my heart, specifically this week leading into this podcast, just in that way of, wait a minute, okay, let's get some sun on our face.
Sometimes it's so simple, those live as designed steps, and then just, did I talk to Jesus? Yeah, doesn't have to be complicated to be life-changing.
It's so
Love
good.
this.
It kind of reminds me just like that. This is just like a little tidbit thought. You're like, all I needed was some sunshine. And I think I don't know what prophet it is, but he was like grumpy and suicide. Like he was like, I just should die.
Elijah.
God said, yeah, Elijah. But like there was a voice that said, "Just eat a snack and take a nap. Like that's what you need." And then he woke up and was in a better spot. So he was like, I just need some sunshine, or I just need. My husband often is like, you need some food, maybe take a nap. Like eat a snack and take a nap, and you'll probably feel a lot better. But yeah, funny enough, this is Hannah, by the way. I want to come up with something different that's not in the same line, because it feels like we're all kind of like in the same line with some of these things. And because they're there everywhere in life, is this applicable? But when I was thinking about this earlier, just like health stuff, I feel like is really like what came to mind, where it's just been like kind of a constant helping guide, like knowing the way of the hearth mother and walking that out. uh where especially just like different sicknesses or symptoms that come up. Specifically this fall, my husband was sick like every month, it felt like, but for like a few months in a row. But one that got him crazy was he had a poison oak, like severe reaction to poison oak that lasted a long time. He was out of work for like 7 to 10 days because his hands were like, he was driving trucks at the time, and his hands were like so swollen that he literally couldn't have driven safely. But it was really helpful because, well, I feel like he sometimes even more than me has like, he's like, God made our bodies to heal. We really don't need that much extra help uh for things to like work themselves out. Like if we just like support our bodies, we will heal. So like he's sometimes stubbornly there, but I really appreciate it. Not really. I feel like it's pretty balanced, but it's just like a core belief that he's like, God made our bodies to heal. They work. We don't need that much extra help. But he was like, it was progressing. We didn't realize at first that he'd been exposed, to the point where I'm like laying in bed at night, like listening to his breathing and making sure he keeps breathing, because it was just everywhere. And it was so helpful to like be able to go back through the steps in my head and just be like, okay, we're constantly praying and like asking the Lord what to do. We're asking questions like, why is this bad? Where did it come from? What can we do about it? And getting curious. And then we're like, okay, this is like pretty rough. So maybe we're hydrating, eating food, all those things. And working through the living aligned. But then I have a friend who's a nurse anesthetist. And I was like, okay, we were considering maybe we should go to the emergency. But what would they do? Like, what would they offer? We don't want to just go there and figure it out. Like, so I called up this friend and was like, okay, here's the scenario. I wasn't really asking his advice, but was like, if we go there, what would they do? And he said they'd give you a steroid and an antihistamine. Like, okay, that's helpful to know. And what would happen? And we definitely veer away from some of those like more extreme things, but it was like, but it might be the time for that. So maybe we should consider that. We're like 5 days in, my husband's eyes are swollen shut, or like one of them at least. And but then what was really cool is we're like, okay, we can take that information, we can pray about it. The emergency room's, 5 minutes away if we need to go there, but let's like not move too quickly. And one thing he said was antihistamine. And we're like, Benadryl's an antihistamine. What if we try that? That's like a lower intervention. That's like forceful, but it's not like a steroid. It's not like an over the counter. And then also icing had been helpful to bring down swelling, because that was like one of the things my friend had said, they're going to give you this to bring down the swelling. And we're like, what else can we do to bring down swelling? So we started icing, and then Benadryl, we like didn't own it. I had to go to Walgreens to get it. And so he started taking that, and it like made a world of difference. And things started to like come down. We were using like we had his hands wrapped in bentonite clay for like 2 days. It was a whole experience. It took a lot of trust, a lot of faith, but like he healed, and God did make our bodies to heal, and he walked with me through the fear. Um, and yeah, just like all of those things. And so there's like a myriad of health things. Like I feel like whenever they come up, that it's just like so helpful. And I usually don't start at step one. And then I realize, oh, I didn't start at step one. I should go there. I should pray about this, because it's so much easier to jump into the like, okay, like what can I do with my hands, rather than like what is the Lord inviting us into, or what is God saying about this? Is this something that's going to work itself on its own? Does it need extra support? But I feel like that's something I've been like so grateful, and has been so grounding, to kind of just like have the way of the Hearthmother as a framework.
Right. I love that. Um, and it was such a blessing to just hear all of the ways that putting language to these steps has rippled out to these women, and it's continuing out from you to other people. It's just incredibly humbling. So I guess to just continue on that, like how else, we just talked about like the most surprising or seemingly most helpful ways that it showed up, but like where is it showing up in just your everyday life is something I'm curious to hear.
I would say, so I am a mother with 4 children under 5. You got that right. Do that math. That's a lot of babies. That's a lot of kids with some high needs. So I feel like I use the way of the Hearthmother probably every single day in my mothering interactions. And just stewarding my home well, I think has really had a strong implication in that sphere. But I think ultimately that comes back to, because the first step is praise and worship and the second step is waiting on the Lord, it's like it's really hovering in those first two, where I feel like a lot of times that's where we need to go to find resolution, because it is from like a place of, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated, mommy needs a timeout, to like, okay, I am going back to the maker, and he is my like place of peace. And so even just the reestablishing of that, going back to your place of peace, and so that your decisions and your thinking going forward can be made of peace and clear, is huge. And I think that's really a game changer as a mom, just juggling a lot of balls. It's really helpful to be able to circle back and just keep circling back. But also, I just love the process of going back to that place of peace, seeking the Lord's thoughts, waiting on Him, hearing Him. And then also that just get curious step. I love the get curious step, because I think it does draw from your intuition so much. And as mamas, like that is, you have this spirit infused intuition, like you just know things about your kids and your family and your household. And so it does bring you back to that place of like, okay, I'm asking good questions. What could this behavior be stemming from? Could it be stemming from me? Like going introspectively, looking at a bigger picture of what's going on around you, and then taking those questions, giving them back to the Lord before you even start bringing other people in, before you even start adjusting rhythms and changing things in the house. Like getting those basic steps in alignment has been super helpful for us.
This is Hannah, and I just, again, just like agree with that. And for me, when I was thinking about it, like, especially in this season, I feel like it applies and shows up in the reminder to go back to step one and step two, that I'm like 5, 6 months pregnant, something like that. And so, and we're just like, we moved into a house a couple months ago. And so there's like lots of task list things and lots of things to be taken care of. And I've been like feeling the nesting settling in the past couple weeks. And I'm like, understand it in a deeper way than I ever did. But there's so many things to be done and prepared and accomplished and all of that. But just like having that reminder to know, like, wait, okay, I'm thinking, like, trusting in my own understanding right now. What should I do about this? Or what should I do first? Or what needs to be taken care of? Or what order does that need to happen in? And then having that, I've just been reminded lately of like, okay, I just need to come back to prayer and worship and wait upon the Lord and move and step with Him rather than in what makes sense to me. And so I feel like that has definitely been the most, like, that's been like one of my bigger goals lately is to just like kind of just like establish that that place with the Lord of just like tucking into him, starting the day with him. I could listen to a podcast while I'm washing the dishes, but what does it look like to talk to the Lord about that? Or I've been dealing with like a couple health things lately. And I feel a little bit frustrated about it. What is God saying about that? And I remember it was like maybe yesterday, there was just the opportunity to kind of like work through those things. And I felt so much more peace and so much more clarity, even though there's like so many voices or just different voices coming in about that I'm like, I don't think that that's the voice I should listen to. I feel peace and clarity in this, just like in going back to seeking the Lord and then moving from there, and trusting in him, and not in my own voice or the people around me.
All right, Krista here, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but my husband is like my springboard when I'm learning something new or when I'm going through something new. And so during the Way of the Hearthmother, he didn't, actually take it with me. However, there were so many times where I would, finish a lesson or get off a hearth call or like just something that just, I don't know, radically shook something up in me, and I would just be like, "Oh my goodness, you gotta hear about this," and I would word vomit on him essentially. And he's gotten really good at like sifting through and taking the good bits and understanding what I'm trying to get across. And so one of the things that I have really noticed is that because of that, we have a lot of Hearthmother language in our home now, to where like when my husband and I have certain conversations, and when we're talking to our kids about things like, well, are you living as God designed you to? Or like when they're coming up against a problem and just helping them, like, well, have you talked to the Lord about that? And just really recently, my husband and I have been specifically asking questions that are like, wait, okay, where is our heart posture to the Lord? Like, have we been taking this to the Lord? We've been in seasons of waiting on various things. And so in that waiting, remembering to, it's not just like go through the steps, right? It's like we've been saying, multiple people have said on this podcast, like going back to that step one repeatedly. Then like even just in the practical things that we're going through, about to be putting our house on the market. We're in the process of looking for land and things that have been a long time coming that we've really been in the waiting for. And so now it's like, okay, wait, let's get curious about this thing. How are we gonna, let's workshop this. And it's just been really cool to see how much, without like being like, okay, let's walk this through the steps of the Hearthmother, that's just like kind of been our default when we're having conversations about it. And I was reflecting back on that and thinking how much it's like, okay, well, we need to pray more about this. Okay, all right, let's wait with this. And like, hey, we need to be praising the Lord about this. And that like cyclical nature of the Way of the Hearthmother that just keeps coming up, specifically with like everything really, I think, since our daughter has been born, and like the planning we've done for that. And then even when something's coming up with one of our kids, like those are the kinds of conversations that we are having as parents that like have just been an outflow of our, well, really just me kind of info dumping the Way of the Hearthmother on him over the last year. That is now actually, it's so beautiful, and it's really cool to just think back on that and being able to see that God has this big vision for our family. And sometimes the waiting part is really hard, just like with birth. For some reason, like birth analogies just make sense to me, right? And so it's so easy to be like, oh, okay, this is the prodromal labor, or okay, this is the whatever stage of this vision that the Lord has given us. And so as we're in this search for our land, that's what we just talk about, like, okay, we're in the waiting. Okay, let's seek the Lord, and we'll send each other land that we find, and then we're like, okay, let's pray about this. And then we talk about it and we're like, okay, wait, that's not actually the one. It looks perfect, but for whatever reason, like that's not the one. I don't know. I just think that's been a really cool aspect that I didn't expect going into Hearthmother Journey, is for the way that it impacted mine and my husband's conversations over the last few months specifically. It's been really cool.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
It's Olivia here. So the way that the Way of the Hearthmother shows up in my life is in two ways. One, I will text or message my Hearthmother Journey cohort with some question or problem or etc., either personal or in birth work. And, I have to stop myself before I text. I'm like, did I wait on the Lord? Because I always get curious first. And then most of the time, they always point me back to steps 1 and 2. So you really need those sisters who will bring you back. And I found that to be so beneficial over the last 9 months specifically, as I've navigated a lot of very intense life changes. And then the second way I would say is particularly step 2 of waiting on the Lord, actually through birth work, which is my life now. I'm always on call, attending a lot of births all the time. There's an element of patience and waiting that my heart has never been okay with and still isn't. And on a daily basis, this is being purified in my heart through me saying yes to the calling to be a birth worker, a student wife, a doula. And it's something that I feel very intensely after 5 days of I don't even know what day it is anymore, and I think that I slept maybe 15 hours, and I saw like 25 people who I can't remember all of them because I'm so tired, and just like realizing that to be okay with like the waiting, the like not there yet, the uncertainty in many areas has just been a really big place of purification for me. Step 2. And so I've kind of resigned myself to always being I'm like, okay, like this is where I'm at. I'm just going to be waiting on the Lord until I make it to the end of my life and meet him again. And it's like this whole life is like that journey of waiting, this Advent and this waiting on him. And so that's really where it's showed up in my practical daily life, but also on a deeper spiritual level as well.
This is Trinity. And Olivia, I had a very similar kind of experience for how the way the Hearthmother shows up in my everyday life, because I think I love get curious. I love that step. I'm really good at that step. I can ask a lot of questions at once, and I'm really good at like taking it to my community and gentle intervention, and yeah, like I'm really good there. But I think so often I forget to wait on the Lord, and that's just been something that's really shown up in my like everyday life of, okay, my toddler's going crazy. Let's figure out how we can intervene and we can fix the problem that needs fixing. But it's been really humbling just to sit and say, okay, nope, I need to just wait a minute and let you act first, Lord, and give you that space. And I don't remember, there's a lesson in like the Wait on the Lord module that talks about when you are waiting, you're not waiting with like expectation of, hey, Lord, this is what I want you to do. It's truly waiting with like an open hands posture of like, no, Lord, you do what you need to do. And that's just been like so radical in my life, to not wait with expectation, but to wait with like truly letting him lead and letting him do the work that he has planned. So yeah.
Krista here, and I just wanted to kind of springboard off of that with the waiting aspect. And one thing that I remember Lauren saying is the intertwining during that period. That phrase was so impactful to me because it didn't feel like just sitting and doing nothing. It's really important, that intertwining period. And I love that the way that Hearthmother Journey is structured, and that you're learning those first steps before you get to like the really birthy stuff, because I didn't know before I did Hearthmother Journey how crucial and important those steps were. And it's really easy. I think it's really natural for a lot of us to jump into the getting curious and to jump into the connecting with other people. But really, like starting off with those steps at the beginning, so profound in the ways that it then just lays the foundation for actually walking out the way of the Hearthmother. And that was something I love that it started with that, because that content specifically changed the lens through which and the posture that my heart was in for the rest of the program.
Yeah, I think waiting on the Lord is, I'm really good at, this is Lauren, at living in the get curious. Like that's like my spiritual gift is to get curious. And then I love to like go to step 4 and like add the community and get curious with my community. And so like it is my instinct to worship and then jump to get curious and then get curious with my closest people. And yet waiting on the Lord is so crucial. It's like, oh, I need to not even get curious with him, because that's really the next step, like get curious with him instead of just with other people. But that waiting on the Lord is the Hebrew word is to intertwine. It's to bind together by twisting or weaving. So you're literally twisting and weaving yourself to him. Like I'm going to bind myself to you. I'm going to intertwine with the Lord because I've already worshiped you. I'm already praying with you. I'm putting you as Lord, but I don't want to separate from that as I move through my life. And so like Isaiah 40:31 is that those who wait, or those who bind on the Lord, shall renew their strength. And that is where this true understanding of waiting not as a passive thing that we're just in a waiting room hanging out waiting for him to do something. It's let me really intertwine my whole life and my whole existence with him. And that's why waiting, I think, it's the hardest step, it's the challenging step, but it is where the strength comes from.
This is Autumn. I really feel like the first 3 steps of the Way of the Hearthmother, of just asking the Lord, seeking the Lord, waiting and hearing his answer, and then getting curious, I feel like those all really tie together into like almost what could be blocked as like the game plan period. Of like, instead of just throwing spaghetti at the walls and going and buying different medications, trying different supplements, trying anything, it's like this is where your game plan is going to come out of, so that when you do something, it is effective and it is productive. And so I think even in real time, thinking back to like birth work, sometimes that game plan period happens quickly, but when you are in that cyclical pattern of this is how my thought process is going, when somebody's in front of you and she's hemorrhaging or something, heaven forbid, she has passed out, like we are circling through the game plan. Like we are seeking the Lord, we are doing all of these things in real time, but it happens fast. And so it's like, okay, now we know, are we reaching for this gentle intervention? Are we trying to feed her right now? She has passed out. No, we are not trying to feed her while she's passed out. We're going to jump ahead. But it's like, because of this game planning period, this block of game planning, we know exactly what step needs to happen next. And sometimes there is that grace for coming out of alignment in intense situations, but like practicing and training our minds to think in this way, it allows our next step to be the next right step and not just us panicking or doing something. So I think it does even just bring back again, like bring the nervous system back. We're going to the Lord. Peace. We're walking out of peace. And so when we do this next thing, it's coming from a place of peace. Even if it is a drastic measure that has to be taken, it is going to be done from this platform of peace.
Yes, and amen. That's exactly the heart. That's exactly it, Autumn. Thank you for sharing that, because it is, I feel like 1 through 3 tends to be, especially 1 to 2, like that's really the base of the woven basket. It's like it's in everything, and you do those, you do every other step different. You're going to do, if you started with 1, you're doing step 8 differently. And so it's which is that invasive intervention, for those who may not know it as intimately, but it is this circle of 1 through 3, 1 through 3. But I got curious and I got kind of an answer to that, so I'm going right back to 1. But when you live in those, it makes everything after that, it doesn't have to be an actual rigid 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, 8, and hopefully we're not getting to, even 7 or 8 or even 6. But it is this place of, I'm going to live in 1 to 2. And my very first instinct to partner with the Lord is to get curious with him first, and then to get curious with his people, and then live as designed. And so it's like, it's not actually an order. It's not a system. It is, but it's not. It's a way of living. It's a way of being intertwined with him and having him as Lord of your life. And because people like systems and like steps to be able to think through, it's a language that we've been able to put to rightly ordered living, forward moving spiral. Yes.
Yeah, this has been amazing. So encouraging to me personally, even just to listen to you all talk about this, and just, this isn't the gospel, but it's very gospel rooted. And just we need to hear people preach the gospel to us frequently so we can remember it and live in accordance with its truth. I feel like having the Way of the Hearthmother preached at me is a helpful thing to take forward into my week. So thank you all so much for everything you contributed and shared, and your personal experiences and your wisdom and your one-liners that we need to put on mugs or t-shirts. And it's just, it's been an amazing gold mine of an episode.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. It has been a blessing to hear this, and has lifted my spirits in ways that I knew I needed, and ways I didn't know I needed. So thank you. Till we meet
Thank you all
again.
for having us.
We'll see you later, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.